Hiya guys, and welcome back to Ades Workshop, and this is going to be part 4 of the ball turning attachment. So in this episode I think we'll go ahead and make the little retaining plate that's going to hold the top to the bottom, hold the rotating part into the bearing, and the rotating tool holder we'll probably put the 10mm slot in it, some grub screws and a bit of refinement, that sort of thing. So let's get straight on with it then, shall we? So we're going to make the little retaining plate first. So I got a bit of, as it happens, a little piece of 3/4 brass, and well, half the work's done for me. It almost fits in the bearing. So just as well use what you've got lying around rather than waste something else. And I do like machining brass, especially after the amount of steel machining I've been doing. Anyway, so first trick, and I'm going to try and do this all in one shot. Now, I know I made the shaft on the tool holder 11mm long and the bearing's 13mm thick. So I'll just give myself a face there. I'm just using this scrap piece, as I said. There's a face there. I'll just set a 0, and I know this can be the maximum of 2mm. So I'll just whip this down to say maybe 1.5mm, something like that. The step that's on there already. I'll tell you what I'll do, it's 2mm at the moment. I'm going to turn the diameter on it while it's that wide, and that way I can still get a feel for if it's the right size or not. So I'll just take a scratch over it, over the diameter, into my 0. Let's just try that bearing. I haven't got the calipers to hand, but well, here we are. A scratch did it. Right, so I'll drop the overall length back down to 1.5. It's 2 at the moment. And here we are. 1.47, I think we can live with that. Right, I'm going to need a 5.1, 5.2 hole up it, something like that. So I've got my centre drill at hand. Just whack the centre drill in first. And doesn't need to go very deep. I've got a what have I got? 5.2, yeah, that'll be fine for an M5. And I probably need about 6mm. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go a bit more, 7. That'll do. Just enough for the parting tool to grab hold of that. Let's just have a break edge on those 2 edges. The OD doesn't need turning, it's running quite true. But I tell you what, let's just give it a scratch over just for the, make it look nice. That's a scratch over the OD. Put my chamfer back on. Yeah. Okay, we'll swap over for a parting tool. I really should get that parting tool of mine, the tip parting tool of mine sorted out. I haven't got any tips for it and I keep forgetting to order them. And if I say it now while I'm filming, when it comes to the edit and I'm at the laptop, I will remember to order some. So I'll just line that up on the front edge. There, no. Yes, I can go from there. I know that's 1.5. Give myself a 0. So 1.5 comes to the shoulder, and I've got 3mm of clearance underneath my bearing holder. So if I go 2.5 from there, so 1.5 and 2.5 is 4. I'll part it off at 4mm. There we are. Spanner, there we go. Just lock my carriage. Oh, while I think of it, just have a little countersink in there, and we'll part that off. I'll go a couple of mil below surface, stop there, nice chamfer on the back face as well. You know what, I think I'm going to come back a little bit. I'm thinking about 2.2 mil, something like that, 2.3 mil. Lost my chamfer again. Okay. Let's have that off there. Down to the bottom. Take it gently so we don't leave a big burn. Can I catch it? I can. A little burr on there. Yeah, that'll snap off. D-bird. Little groove in there, I'll run that over a stone. Yeah, I mean that was quick, simple, little retaining washer. Here we are, all the machining marks gone. Okay, just to show you what I just made. When the bearing's fitted onto the upper part, the shoulder of the shaft is 2 mil below the surface of the bearing. We put a 1.5 mil step on there, so when that's on there and we fit a screw, it's going to compress down and hold the bearing, or hold the upper part completely into the bearing so it can't go anywhere. Here we are. So I think next procedure is going to be to carry on and machine a 10 mil slot in there. So I'll show you my setup for that, and then I'll start cutting. But it's going to take me quite some time. So I'll probably hold it in the vise straight onto my cross slide as usual, and we'll show you that in a moment. One of my viewers commented about my Pembrokeshire flag on the wall. I think they called it squinty because it was all on the angle before. But as you can see, it's straightened out now. So happy days. I don't know if I've shown this before, but the way I square my vise up to the world. I take the jaws out of my chuck, just come up somewhere near, hold it hard against the face of the chuck with the jaws removed, and then tighten down the clamps. And that's the vise squared up to the world. So the next part of my setup, let's put my block in. I've got a couple of lathe tools behind as parallels. I got some 1/2 inch and some 5/16. Back against the shoulder, and I'm sticking out there, yeah, about 12.5 mil, so I should be able to put a 10 mil slot in there simply. So the final step now, I've got a ground center in my collet, and as you can see, that's too low. I'll just loosen the vise off so that I can move it up and down. I'll just adjust my cross slide a little just to find center. There. So as you can see, it'll bring itself to center height. I'm holding it back, just checking my back jaw of my vise. That looks good. I'll just nip the vise. Perfect. So I'll tighten the vise down there now. In fact, if I hold a bit of pressure while I do it, oh, let me just come across shot. That's the vise tight. And that is my part now set up on its centre line of the lathe, ready for me to cut the 10 mil slot. So I've just run a scratch pass over there just to verify everything's true. I got a bit of cutting compound, or my cutting glue, in my brush. And I've decided, change of plan, to go for a 12 mil cutter. A 12 mil wide slot just seems to look right, but I'm still going to go to the 10 mil depth. I'm limited on the depth. So yeah, That's a 0.25 depth of cut. I could probably do more. Probably, you know, I'd probably get away with 3mm a cut, but I'm in no rush. I'd rather get it right than get it done quickly. So yeah, I'm going to keep my stepping in at 0.25. I know it's going to be 40 passes, but we'll have no dramas along the way. And I'm cutting always in this direction. I run the cutter through, then run it back across, run it right off the end, and then back across. There we go. Yeah, it's going to take me a little while. I'm locking my carriage, I'm putting the feet on with a DRO, and I set a 0 at the start position. Bit more cutting compound. And take another cut. I can go for lunch now. I'm not really using the cordless drill, I just thought it was a giggle. Sets you thinking, you know, about power feeds, doesn't it? I've used a cordless drill on the compound before now when I'm doing a long taper. But that wasn't sort of set up and leave it go, so to speak. Yeah, I'm getting there now. That's what am I, 7.75 deep. I've only been about 15 minutes or so. Well, I've actually been about half an hour, but messing about with the drill took 15 minutes. But it was fun. I'll bring you back on the finishing cut. Final cut now. Nice slow pass on this one. Probably travelling at about half the speed. And I'm finishing off with a 0.1 cut on depth. So just going around deburring all the corners now. I much prefer my vise where it is now. I've got far better daylight. It doesn't matter how much light you put, you know, artificial light you put on something. There's no substitute for daylight when it comes to doing fine details, especially. Especially being a bit of an old git, not having the eyes I used to have. I'm just using an alcohol wipe to thoroughly clean the inside of the bore, ready to Loctite the bearing in. I've already done the bearing as well. Let me just okay, put that safe. Okay, so I got some stud lock, bearing fit. What is it? Bearing fit and stud lock. So I'm going to put a little bit around the outside of there. I won't go mad with this stuff. You don't need gallons of it. And you can see just a bit of a smear. And again in there. Whoop. Ooh, caught it first time that time. Give it a bit of a twist. Right, now what I want to do is just to make sure it stays down against the bottom. What have I got? Little fit on there. One of those. Bit of weight on it. Ooh, even better. I wonder. Now, I'm trying to do a balancing act here. That should do it. Keep them in the centre. Right, we'll leave that set overnight anyway, and then I'll wipe off the excess Loctite. We'll come back and have a talk about how I'm going to set out the holes in here for clamping the tool. Drawn a little triangle tip shape pointing that way and an arrow there. Now, if I were turning a ball, if you could imagine, I'd be starting on the end of the ball and working my way round, and if I went to 90 degrees like that, that would do a dome end on a shaft, so to speak. And if I were turning a ball, I would probably be coming round to somewhere near that angle there, with the chuck being here. Let me just bring you out a little bit. With the chuck being here, I'd be round cutting on that sort of angle. So I'll be cutting from here, as you can imagine, around the outside of a ball until I get to the center point. So you would typically cut from the outside of the ball in. So pressure on the tool would be pushing this way all the time. So what that's telling me is to keep that as the flat face for the moving tool holder and put the screws in on this side to clamp it hard against a fixed face, so that as I'm cutting, all the load is against the fixed face and the screws are pushing on the opposite face, so to speak. So that's the plan. This face is where I'm going to put the screws for clamping the tool. Now, as far as the handle goes, when you're on the end of the ball, I've just got that dropped into my milling slide in a hole at the moment. I think if the handle were, let's say, here somewhere, so the handle sticks out there like this, then I could cut all the way round to 90 degrees and my handle would still be here somewhere, well out of the way of the chuck. And as I cut round to this sort of point, to cut in behind if you were doing a full ball, I would still be well out of the way of the rotating chuck with my hand here. So yeah, I think I've decided on a position just while we've been chatting. So the position for that is going to be somewhere around there. And I'm going to have to drill it, put a hole through to the centre, and again, drill these three into this space with the handle here. And that's going to be my setup. So I think I now need to probably put my vise back up again and set this up. Oh, just one further thought while I'm at it. The simple way would be to cut a step through here, square, and then I'd have a flat surface to drill into. But I think that would look ugly on the finished part with, you know, a big flat chunk out of it. I think it looks nicer with this sort of shape, you know, keeping the full round. So I think I will actually spot face the three holes to do the grub screws. I'm going to fit the grub screws. It's 10mm deep slot. I'm going to use M6s. I'm going to fit them halfway up, so obviously 5mm up from the base. And behind each grub screw on the face, at the root of the M6, at the 5mm, is going to be a little brass slug, so that when I tighten up the grub screws, I'm not denting the side of the sliding tool holder, so that, you know, whenever you try and move it, it's always going to try and follow back into where the dents that the grub screws put in. So I'm going to have three little brass slugs, very similar to what I did when I modified my compound slide, so that when you tighten up the three screws, all you're going to do, you're not going to damage the sliding part, and it's not going to always want to pull into dents and troughs, that sort of thing. So yeah, three tapped holes. Tapped hole in the side here, might have to do a little bit of spot facing in the side. I think perhaps we need an angle as well, an angle of approach, maybe like 15 degrees for the spot facing. So that's going to be a bit of fun. We'll do that. Just thought I'd mention, I've drilled and tapped another 3 M5 holes in here. I'm going to end up with a whole row, which are going to take the little screws that I've turned down with the washers, just again to keep them safe, so that, you know, carry on with the same theme, as it were. So I put my vise back up, squared it up, put the part in the vise and rotated it this way until where I want the drill is pointed towards the headstock. Then I've tipped it down at an angle that looks right, and what's quite handy is because the pointer that I'm using sort of replicates a pin, and I can see, yeah, that looks about right. No great art to this. And then basically I centre found the 2 sides and come to the middle and locked off my cross line. So I know I'm on the centre line of the diameter. I've got the angle I'm looking for, and I am actually far enough down with my centre point to allow me to put a 12mm spot face on. So I'm going to spot face it 12mm, and I do have the 12mm cutter I was just using, and then I'm going to drill and tap it M8, because I've decided I'm going to make the handle out of this piece of 10mm silver steel, so M8 will do nicely. So I spot faced it with a 4mm cutter, 4mm diameter end mill, or actually slot cutter it was. I've now centre drilled it out with a centre drill, and I do have a little 3 flute, well, it's a countersinker for an imperial bolt it is, and it's got a 1/4 head on it, so that would be perfect for spot facing a flat spot, if only I had a 1/4 drill. Ah! 1/4 cobalt drill. Cheers, Everett. So I can safely go into here. Well, I'm going to go 10mm deep. Touch more. That'll do me. I can't use my winding handle on this occasion, purely because I've got a drawbar in the headstock for that MT3, but I've got a spanner on the end of the drawbar, and I'm going to tap that now while it's on that angle, because, well, it'll just feel weird trying to tap that hole on an angle. Well, I think that's about it for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you all soon. Bye now.